laser focused on building the biggest travel tech company in the world. That's my ambition. We think we can build something generational, focus on group travel. Kahana as a product will morph into a group travel super app. That's something that we're already designing the architecture for. So being able to book flights is just one thing. Going to launch hotels. We're looking at experiences. Kahana 2.0 is also going to have a Kahana shop as well, so you can actually get things you need for your trip in the same. Yeah, so I'm Felix Ochefu. I love travel. I love technology. I love culture, tourism, food, cuisine, just basically anything that gets you to immerse yourself in culture and people. That's my bread and butter. I love it. I started Kahana because we being my friends and I a couple of years ago had a trip that we wanted to plan after uni. And we just found it really difficult to plan and book. The experience was just horrible,
And where was the trip to?
We're interrailing around the south of France, around France in general, but a big chunk of it was in the south of France. And if people listening have never interrailed before, I highly, highly recommend it. It's a really good. It's a really good way to explore Europe specifically. It's all by train. So yeah, I just found the experience planning and booking the trip really just difficult and fragmented. Having to manage multiple different products, services, we're using WhatsApp and Booking.com and Airbnb, Expedia, this and that, and then different payment products. I was like, surely we can do all of this in one place. Why do we have to manage all these products? And the example I like to use when I describe the problem we're solving is, imagine you wanted to book an Uber and you had to open one app to check if this car's available, a second app to book the car, a third app to pay for the car, and a fourth app to talk to the driver. That's a very fragmented experience that people wouldn't really enjoy. But yet in travel tech, that's what we're used to. And I've been used to that for, generations now at this point. So that insight kind of spurred the idea of, can you build an all-in-one product that makes it easy for groups of people specifically to travel together? And then it just kind of took on a life of its own after that. Yeah, so that was the seed of it.
So you saw that real problem statement, you experienced it yourself in terms of that travel experience, and that kind of like propelled you to solving for that problem essentially, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the so where did you grow up, and kind of like you mentioned you were doing traveling like after university, like where did you grow up and what was your kind of like early experiences?
Yeah, so I grew up actually moving around quite a lot. I was born in London, to Nigerian parents. Moved back to Nigeria when I was, I think, about 4 years old, 3-4 years old. We moved to Benue State, which is where my dad is from, where Idoma on my dad's side. So I moved to Benue State, lived in Makurdi, which is the capital, for a couple of years. Then moved back to London, moved to North London specifically, for another 4-ish years. And then moved back to Nigeria for secondary school.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, went to 4 different secondary schools.
Yeah.
Ogun State, Lagos. I was in Green Springs, Lekki, for 2 years. Then my family moved to Abuja. Went to school in Abuja for a year, and then moved to Ibadan International School in Ibadan for my IGCSE, and then moved back to the UK for my A levels. I went to a school called Dalham School in the Lake District in Cumbria, in a small village called Heversham. He spent 2 years there, and then went to uni at DMU Leicester. So spent 4 years in Leicester. And then moved back to London to start my career in consulting and solutions architecture, business analysis. So my early days was basically defined by moving around, quite a lot, and having to kind of learn how to reinvent myself, how to connect with different communities. Growing up between Benue, Abuja, Lagos, Ibadan. These are very, very different places with different types of people. When you're young, you don't know what you don't know, right? So you just have to find a way to make friends and connect with people in these different ways. So I didn't realize how much those experiences were shaping me to love the immersion of travel and culture, as a kid. But now in hindsight, I can definitely see where the trends lay. So it was a very humbling experience. And I also think as a Nigerian, it gives you a very unique perspective on the country. I have a lot of friends who, were born and bred in Lagos, maybe lived in London, lived in the US, but like their Nigerian experience is quite limited to Lagos specifically. So their context is, can be sometimes a bit narrowed. Whereas for someone like me who, bounced around the country, and then also around different places in the UK as well, I think it's quite a blessing to be able to have that perspective of the world. And I think when it comes to then building technology and technology that impacts people, I think it's quite an advantage.
Incredible. Yeah, so there's a lot of extreme experiences, right, from the Lake District to different
facts.
parts of Nigeria. That's in kind of like short periods of time as well, in terms of like your youth and how that's kind of like shaped your forward thinking is incredible. So kind of like, okay, so solutions architecture and business analysis is your kind of like background and basis, right? So you're technical already in terms of equipping you to the skills to building Kahana.
Yes.
What propelled you to actually taking that leap to founding your own company and not just going the corporate route and just becoming an employee?
Yeah, do you know it's really funny? I wanted to start a company straight out of uni. And I was speaking to my parents about it, and they were advising me, it's good to get the corporate experience first and learn what it's like to work in a big company and get that experience before you start your own thing. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. On my dad's side, we're talking 3-4 generations of entrepreneurs. And my mom's side, about 2 generations of entrepreneurs. So I grew up in an entrepreneurial space, in an entrepreneurial family. I remember being in year 7 in my first school in Nigeria, Corona Secondary School, and I was drawing the headquarters of my future company. And at the time, it was called F Magic. I'll never forget this. And I remember my friends just being like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm like, I want to build stuff, So even when I was young, I used to be the kid who would sell, things in school, sell sweets, things like that. We would smuggle, sweets into boarding school and distribute it and sell it for like 3-4 times the price. So I really enjoy that hustle. And, as I was getting older, I was getting more and more into entrepreneurship. I did young enterprise when I was in A-levels. We built a company for a year. We, had board members, we had shareholders, everything. Nice. It was a proper immersive experience when I was in school in the Lake Districts.
How did you speak more about young enterprise? Because, we've always got kind of like young people that are interested in getting into entrepreneurship. Speak more about that program.
Yeah, so it was... For us, it was kind of a bit of fun, you know. I was doing business and economics for my A-levels, and that was my core A-level subjects, and it's one I enjoyed the most. So when the opportunity came to actually like put the theory into practice, it was kind of a no-brainer. So they gave us like the basics, but they basically gave us free range to kind of build whatever business that we wanted. At the time, it wasn't technology. We were building kind of products that were in the renewable space. We were creating like bracelets, which is kind of random thinking back now, but we got like renewable materials that are good for the environment, biodegradable, and turned them into bracelets that we could sell to the younger kids. And we had a huge team. I think we were like 9 people in the team, and then they had a separate team as well. And then we did a full merger and acquisition, to bring 2 teams together. We competed at the regional level as well, against other schools in the area too. So I highly recommend, I don't know if they still do it. I haven't checked for a while, but at the time it was a really, really interesting and I think important experience to go through if you're interested in entrepreneurship, in real life versus just learning about it. So I definitely recommend like for young people to check out things like, Young Enterprise if it's still around, and do Young Enterprise if it's actually happening. But it wasn't until a little bit later that I got the experience that really got me thinking about entrepreneurship. I co-founded my first startup when I was on placement year in 2016, and it was in health tech. We wanted to build AI-powered software to help kids in care homes. It was kind of like, at the time it was like imagine like every child in a care home had their own Tamagotchi that responded to their feelings and emotions. Got you. And that data would then be fed to the school and to the care home staff to kind of manage and monitor how the kid was feeling. So if the kid was having a bad day, the avatar would kind of morph and look sad and everything, and then that would then send a signal to the parents and stuff. So that didn't go anywhere. We pitched for funding. It didn't really go anywhere. So when I went back to uni to finish my final year, my university had a scheme called DMU Global, where every student has the opportunity to travel on an academic-led trip. So there was a trip to Silicon Valley that they did. And in 2016, that was the year that I actually learned about things like robotic process automation, early AI, TensorFlow from Google. I was automating things at work, using VBA and Excel. So I was really getting really interested in kind of power of technology and how it can improve workflows in general. So when we got to Silicon Valley, the itinerary was amazing. We got to spend time at Google headquarters. We spent a day at Stanford, San Jose State. We were meeting world-class entrepreneurs, everywhere. I bumped into an entrepreneur on a train, who had just gotten into YC. And, now his company is worth about $3.2 billion, backed by Sequoia.
Yeah.
And he just finished uni in Oxford. He moved back to San Francisco to start his company. It's called Retool. Founder's called David Su.
Okay.
So we're meeting all these amazing builders. And what was crazy to me was how young they were. These are people who were a year older than me, a year younger than me, and they were raising venture capital. This is 2017, so I was like, they're giving young people money out here to build stuff? Like, that's crazy, And I, of course, from my experience trying to, pitch my last company and that not going very well, it was an eye-opener that, like, people actually took young builders seriously in this ecosystem. So when I was meeting with these builders, I met the CEO of Calm at a TED Talk. We met the youngest VC in the US at the time. He was like a 16-year-old. It was crazy to me, So I was like, okay, like, this is really, really inspiring. And, it's kind of a reminder that, like, you can build stuff. I learned about, concepts like rapid prototyping, not being scared to fail, building global from day one. All those concepts were coming from students at Stanford who we spent time with in person, for a whole afternoon. And then from Stanford, we went to Google, Google's headquarters. And Google was built by Stanford graduates, PhD students who were, in their late 20s at the time, right? So you're coming from what it looks like to be in a classroom to what it looks like when you put, classroom projects into real life and how big it can get. So, and I'm a visual learner. I believe in power of visualization. So that for me was incredible. Like, okay, cool. You can actually, like, build stuff, and real people built this. I mean, even like, Spotify, for example, like, somebody built that. Apple, somebody built that. So, and young people as well, so it really gave me that belief. And, my other classmates as well who came on the trip together, gave us a belief that we could actually build stuff.
Did you catch Larry and Sergey in Mountain View?
No, we didn't, unfortunately. I mean, the place is massive, so it was almost impossible. But we got a good history of Google. We saw the first ever server rack, at Google that they built, by hand and wired by hand. So it was really amazing to see, like, all of that started from a company called Backrub, by two PhD students who were doing research at university to, arguably, one of the most successful, businesses in the world with the most successful business model. In the world. So
I think we probably I worked there probably at the same time. I was actually on the tour that year as
really?
well. Yeah. In
2016,
2017. I don't know, can't remember the year, but it's a huge site. And that experience that you've just spoken about in terms of going from the UK founders, it's very common in terms of thinking big in the US.
Yes.
Like, there's no limits, and you experienced that really early, and I think that's really, really important in terms of that, like, kind of like mind state of anything's possible out there, right?
Facts,
and it's really interesting kind of, how much the, UK government are trying to incentivize entrepreneurship, but really and truly, you've seen it firsthand that they're just operating on a completely different scale in terms of how that opportunity is.
They are, and I'm a big fan of history. My dad is a history professor, political history, economic history. So I grew up loving history. I love context. I'm a contextual learner.
Okay.
So for me, it's not enough to just say, oh, there's a difference between UK founders and US founders, or the difference between the UK ecosystem and the US ecosystem. What makes that difference? Where does it come from? Big things like culture, like history, really affects how entrepreneurship, is encouraged and is, pushed forward. There's a reason why the biggest companies in the world are US companies. There's a almost like a renegade spirit that happens in the US that's very, very deep and rooted in their history. And you have to understand their history to understand why the US is the way it is and why US entrepreneurs are the way they are. Versus the UK, where maybe we won't go into it too deeply, it's a different context.
No, totally,
So I think when founders are thinking about things like that, that history and that context and that learning is important.
Okay,
even when you do things like fundraising as well.
No, totally.
History is important.
And to take out, DME Global program wasn't aware of it, so kind of we'll amplify that. So going from the UK to US on that program, massively insightful, being at the forefront, you met people from Y Combinator, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to the UK, that propelled you to found Kahana?
Yes and no.
What stages and steps were there in between?
So actually, I didn't start Kahana when I came back from the US. I founded something else called Ideas Lab Global with my friends who were on that trip with me.
Sure.
And Ideas Lab Global was built around the core insights and exposure we had in the US, specifically around what I mentioned before about how seriously they took student entrepreneurs. We were students at the time who wanted to build things, and DMU at the time was very entrepreneurial. We had people working in studying in fashion industry, footwear design, in the business school, in the law school. People who were studying nursing, but they were hustling on the side and selling jollof rice after the club or whatever. Really, really amazing entrepreneurial ecosystem. But the issue we saw as business students were a lot of people would come to us and ask us, how do I build things? How do I start a business? How do I do marketing? Stuff like that. So my friends and I would literally be connecting people. So we know someone from marketing who was very good at branding. We knew someone who wanted to build a new brand. Connect them and see what happened. So when we went to Silicon Valley, we saw that at scale. It was specifically at San Jose State University that they had a physical space where students can just come in. It's open all day, every day, and they can just build stuff. And we walked in and they had a big ass screen where you had the name of the startup, the founder of the startup, what they were doing, what they needed, and how to contact them. Right front and center in this classroom, basically. So you'd walk in, be like, I'm looking for a co-founder for this thing, this person, connect straight away, we're good to go. And people were getting funding. We met a founder, who was in second year. He was a sophomore, and he had raised $500,000 for a fintech startup. And I'm like, in second year? Like, what's going on in this place, man? And we just got really inspired by that, So we came back and we're like, okay, cool. How do we build something similar, for DMU students specifically? And it was initially meant to be a physical space, but it didn't really end up playing out that way. So we said, okay, cool. Let's make it a virtual space. Let's build a platform that students from around the world can connect with each other and actually build stuff. And that platform, the community, grew quite well. We got to I think about 120 students around the world, from the US, UK, Nigeria, as far as China, Japan, even Israeli students, students from Jordan, building stuff and wanting to connect and collaborate. Some of the students have gone on to do really, really well. One of the highlights, or two of the highlights, I would like to shout out to them. Harry is the founder and CEO. Harry and Ben, co-founders and CEO, co-founders of Hauser.
Okay.
Harry's a CEO. Ben is a CTO. They came from Manchester, University of Manchester, and they built a company called Hauser. And Hauser is like a Tinder for student housing. Hauser just did a Series A. They raised $10 million. That's a $17 million valuation. And then there's Sam Flynn, who actually went to DMU as well, building Hands In, which helps people split payments at the point of purchase.
Okay.
So almost like an Apple Pay, but for groups, right? I met him on Twitter, and it was at the time at least. And the community was so powerful. And we also created an Instagram page as well, just to put out content to help people build businesses. That page now has about 65,000 followers. Yeah. So every day we support people, building businesses. So that experience and that startup, came directly out of the experience in Silicon Valley. But it was another trip after university that inspired Kahana. And that was a trip to the south of France. So
okay, so Ideas Lab Global is still live, and
yes, on Instagram, Ideas Lab Global.
You guys are still running that.
Yeah, so we don't run it full time anymore. There was a time in my life where I was working full time in consulting, building Kahana early, and then also running Ideas Lab because we're doing other work. We're working with universities directly as well to support their student ecosystems. We did some work with DMU. To improve the digital divide in Leicestershire. We worked briefly with the University of Portsmouth as well.
Okay.
So there's some really good work that I'm very, very proud of with Ideas Lab. And now we just kind of put out the content, so people can learn how to build companies better at that level. Okay,
so let's talk about the other trip that inspired the build of Kahana.
Yes. I actually wrote about this trip. It's on my Medium page. That trip was incredible because it came out of us being proud of where we came from academically. The year before, I had gone from a 2-2 uni to a first class because I had to completely rebuild my learning style around the fact that I was a contextual learner. I didn't realize that all my academic, I actually quite struggled in school. I was up and down, for the most part. And then when I got to second year of uni, I was on a 2-2. Yeah. So I had to talk to my parents, and they were like, bro, you need to step up, mate. You need to buckle up and do your thing. If you graduate with a 2-2, it might be tricky to get a job at the McKinsey's or whatever, which is kind of what I was aspiring to do at the time. So I was able to get my 2-2 to a first class, and because of that, I was like, I'm going to treat myself. We're going to go on this trip, right? So it was me and two of my friends actually from Dalham, from my boarding school in the Lake District, and we said, okay, let's travel around France. I had done an Interrail trip before when I finished A-levels. We did London to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Cologne, Cologne to Munich, and Munich to Venice, all on a train. So that was like my first kind of cross-continental European trip. But this one wanted to do France specifically. And again, like I mentioned before, the planning process was really fragmented. And I was like, surely we can do something better than this. Like, this does not make any sense to me. I'm a big fan of clean technology. I love technology that's useful, that's smooth, that's easy to use, that's elegant, and it just felt like the experience was so fragmented, and there were no products out there.
Which platforms were you using? So like Rome to Rio is one, isn't it, that exists? How did you find that, or like Apodo, and how did you find all of those offerings?
I mean, they were all tailored for solo travelers. So
how did you wanted to like group
everything together,
what, and pay kind of like split payment, or
all of it together. Okay. Let's do all of it together. So your online travel agencies, your OTAs, right? That's your Booking.coms, your Kayak, your Expedias, your Skyscanners. These are all called online travel agencies, right? And none of them are built for groups per se. That's not really the business model. They all have a very transactional relationship with the customer, right? You go to Skyscanner because you want to get the cheapest flight. It's as simple as that. Your relationship doesn't. That's the beginning and end of the relationship with Skyscanner, right? When it comes to groups, you're having to, create the group chat in WhatsApp. So we have this famous saying, the trip that made out the group chat. The fact that we celebrate that is crazy to me. Everybody just says it's like it's a thing, right? The fact that we have to celebrate that, like it's a point of celebration, shows how bad the experience is.
Coordinate it,
for a technologist, that's how I see things, So I was like, we're having to do WhatsApp, then search Skyscanner, Booking.com, Airbnb for the best prices, deals, whatever. Compare all of those, right? Send it to the group chats. People then forget to reply. They don't reply on time. The price you've seen now goes up by £50, £100, whatever it is. You're doing the searches. And then when it comes to paying, again, it's all fragmented. You're not paying the same place that you're searching the flights or you're booking, right? Or even chatting, right? So I was like, surely you just put all this together. Can you create a place where I can create a trip, I can add you, we can search flights, we can chat. If I see a ticket that I like, that the price makes sense, I can send it to the group chats directly from the airline. No, sending a ticket that's going to take me from one provider to another provider, and then by the time you get to the third provider, the price has tripled. Can you send the price from the airline or from the hotel directly into the group chat? If you like it, you tap it, the price is there, and you book and you pay for it right in the same place. Can we even save together rather than doing all this bill splitting where you're doing that after you pay? Can you save together beforehand and then use that money to then pay for things in the app and also spend in real life? What does that product look like? So that was the thesis underlying it. I wanted to go down to the first principles and essentially rebuild the experience from scratch and then build up from there. So all these tools you mentioned, Rome to Rio, Skyscanner, Booking.com, they're good. I mean, they're incredible businesses. They built a lot of success over the years, but they're not really designed for groups. And group travel, is 59% of the leisure travel industry. For business travel, it's even more than that. But the stats show that 40% of group trips never make it past the planning stage. That's what the research shows. I think in real life, it's actually a lot more than that. It's more like 80%. Most people's group trips never make it out the planning.
It's just not tracked in terms of...
It's not tracked. So we want to really revolutionize that.
Okay. So what stage are you at then with Kahana now? Like where's the product at?
So right now we're at Kahana 2.0. We spent most of our journey, kind of like almost like in the research R&D phase. We wanted to also build a community as well. For us, it was really important to build an in real life community. We didn't just want to solve a technology problem. We wanted to solve a community and brand problem. the insight I mentioned before about how most customers treat the incumbent travel brands as a utility, as a transactional utility, is in itself an opportunity. You know, if travel is such a visceral part of the human experience, why don't you, for example, love Skyscanner to your bone, the same way you might love a Gymshark, or the same way you might love a like a Strava?
Yeah.
You know, why not? You know, and so for me, it was like, well, there's an opportunity to build something, you know, incredible here, brand-wise and technology-wise, and really transform the industry. So we wanted to be very intentional about building a community first. So right now, we're about almost 600, 570-ish members in the community. And we call them Kahana Explorers.
Okay.
So we spent time building that. We did events. We did our first international event in Lagos during December, which was very successful. I've done a couple in London.
Nice.
And then technology-wise, we've been able to prove out the technology. I would admit that the technology part has been hard because the customer journeys that I've been mentioning, you know, being able to chat and book and pay on the same place, don't natively work together. These are, you know, people build products around these things. Bring them together has been a technical undertaking for sure. But I'm really proud of my team. We've been able to you know, to make it happen. And I even documented when we did our first ever booking on the products.
Okay.
I documented the whole thing when I went to Barcelona using it. So right now, we've been taking all the feedback we've been getting from our past launches. You know, our last launch, you know, saw daily active usage numbers that were way above industry standard. You know, we're talking 5-6 times, you know, higher than your Skyscanners or Booking.coms, which is basically unheard of in the travel industry. It's almost like social media level usage for travel products. So we've proven out a lot of the assumptions, start building the community. So now we are taking all that feedback from our last launch and we're launching Kahana 2.0. Okay. So brand new design, new brand identity, same name, improved logo, improved design. I'm a design guy, so I love design. So we've been doing all of those and we're looking to launch this quarter with the new design. So that's where we're at.
So which segment of the travel industry or travel audience are you going for? Like, who's your ideal client profile? Is there a specific age group and is there a specific experience that you're targeting as well?
Yeah, so we obviously want you to love travel, you know, very, very important. We want you to love group travel specifically. Okay. I get asked a lot, you know, why don't you do something for solo travelers? And I'm like, we have solutions for you everywhere, you know. We can't be everything for everybody, unfortunately. Sure. You know, we want to really serve the group travel community and the group travel market.
But isn't there a segment of, because I know in the, you know, the Gen Z, like the solo travelers is a big segment, right, in terms of them getting together as solo travelers, like people that don't know each other at these experiences. Yeah. Is that something that you're facilitating as well?
Yes, we will do down the line. Okay. So right now, the products, the way it works is you're able to create a group, create a trip group. Every trip has a group chat. So you can talk in it. You can search for flights directly from the airlines. We have access to about 140 different airlines around the world directly from the airline. The prices come from the airline directly. We do charge a booking fee, about 5% ish. So that's how initially we're going to monetize the products. And then when you book and pay for it, we send a ticket to your email and you're good to go.
So are you leveraging the direct airline APIs in your platform? Yes, we are. Kind of like that fee that you're charging, how are you translating that to the customer in terms of value? Like what is the added value that they're getting from not just going to BA direct, going to the hotel direct and going to the museum direct to create that experience?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we wanted to do direct bookings because of the ease of it. We want it to be, you know, 2 clicks max, right? The benefit that you get is that the coordination, you know, if you just go to, you know, the airline directly, you find a very similar price because the prices are coming from the airline themselves. So we intentionally designed it that way. So there's a lot of transparency around the pricing. Because it's just the airline price plus our booking fee, and that's what you pay. But the real benefit comes out of the coordination. You know, so you can search for that flight from the same place you're talking to your friends about that trip. You know, so we've broken down the barriers between the coordination, the communication, and the flight search and the booking and the payments. So it's that latter part that's really important that I think will really drive the value. But of course, it's technology, you know, so people are going to use it, you know, how they're going to use it. So I'm really excited to actually see how much value it creates. the other benefit that I saw when I first used the product myself was how fast it was.
Okay.
The speed from creation of a trip to booking and payments was insane. I'd never seen anything like it before. You know, even when I put it on my Instagram and I showed people, it's like, whoa, like this is crazy. It's really, really fast.
And so like, let's talk about like, the user experience and kind of like what the USP is. So like, I know the group chat is embedded into the tool, and like you can all agree on kind of like the dates that you're going and kind of like where you want to stay and all that kind of stuff. Are you creating experiences as well in these destinations?
Not yet. Not yet. No.
Okay.
So we're starting very, very simple. You know, the easiest and fastest place to be able to book a flight, you know, through a group chat with your friends.
Okay.
That's what we're starting with.
So everyone get together, we'll book a flight, let's go and do it.
Yes.
And the sequencing of that first person that books, the second person that books, like how you like managing that and handling that?
Yes, another good question. So the sequencing is we've made it really easy for everybody to just book the flight themselves, but from the group chat, right? So we're not doing group bookings just yet.
Okay.
We're going to launch another product called Kahana Pay that does the group savings and payments functionality that we mentioned.
Yeah.
So that's going to make group bookings a little easier. So it's not split payments; it's saving together over time, and you'll be able to unlock rewards for saving as well, and you'll be able to use the money to then pay for flights and hotels. But initially, you're going to be able to individually search for the flights and then book and pay for them. And then once you pay for it, we'll send a notification to the group chat like, oh, you know, so and so has booked the flight.
Yeah. And rail travel as well. Because you spoke about rail.
No, not rail just yet.
So just flights.
Just flights for now.
Together,
yes.
Everyone wanted to book.
Yeah. And then very, very quickly we're going to launch hotels as well. You know, with the API that we have access to, we have about, I think it's like 1.2 million accommodations around the world. So all your big hotel brands, some short stay brands as well. And the database is growing regularly. So
and you're booking, you're getting a fee, an affiliate fee off those hotels as part of that booking, and then you'll probably reduce the fee for the end user, like just the overall booking fee potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, great. In terms of like Kahana and the vision, kind of like long term, like what are you looking at in terms of like rollout?
Yeah. So rollout wise, so we've been rolling out through our community so far. For us, it's very, very important to make sure we're building the right products for the right people. Like you mentioned before, the demographic, you know, the community is kind of younger millennials, Gen Z, you know, Gen Alpha. So young people, tech savvy, people who love to travel, people who like the community, people who also, you know, are spending more of the disposable income on experiences, you know, which, you know, the data has shown after COVID specifically. The amount of money the young people are spending on experiences is really going up, and I think it's going to continue to grow. I think experiences are very, very powerful. Travel definitely inspires. It changes lives. It changed my life multiple times. Travel has inspired people to build some of the most iconic companies in the world, which a lot of people actually don't know this. You know, Nike, Starbucks, Notion, Salesforce. These are all inspired by the founders going on trips. Even Apple was you know big part of Apple's ethos and design was inspired by, you know, Steve Jobs spending time, you know, in India. You know, so we want to be able to scale, you know, that love of travel, you know, with community underlined by technology. So we're rolling out specifically from our community first. That's what we've been doing so far. And from there, we're just going to continue to, you know, push that way. I think it's going to be very powerful in a very differentiated way as well that keeps our cost of acquisition low as well as a business. Because the really good thing about group travel is, you know, from a business point of view, you are acquiring the trip lead, what we call a trip lead. You know, person, you know, that person in the friendship group who likes to start the trips and start the planning process, and then they're going to bring their people because naturally they want to travel with them anyway. Versus like a Booking.com or Skyscanner where they're paying to acquire individual travelers and it's really expensive. You know, so that's why the community strategy has been really important for us so far, and I think we've actually done quite well. And when it comes to rolling out, kind of internationally, you know, because we're looking at obviously the US market as well. We're looking at Europe too. We're going to start from the UK, start in London. We want to roll out, and have been rolling out, tied to big events that move people.
Makes sense, yeah.
You know, so for example, when we did our launch in Lagos, we tied that to December. You know, we're looking at the World Cup as a really big opportunity for us. We launched actually pre-December. We launched we launched a small version of the products in Paris for Fête de la Musique. Right, so we're looking at those, you know, big millions of people, and tying the products to that, making sure that people are able to coordinate, because the use case is the same. Basically, it doesn't really matter what the event is. Underlying is people want to get together to go somewhere for a specific thing.
Okay, great. And in terms of bots that you're building, talk to me more about Lagos Bot that you built.
So Lagos Bot was kind of an experiment, to be honest.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, it came out of the learnings, and actually initially came from me building a chatbot for my cousin's wedding in Nigeria, and seeing how useful it was for people, and how quickly it spread through the cohort of users was amazing. So I think at the time I think I'd sent the link to 7 people, and we ended up having 52 different users from that 7 people. So I was like, oh damn, like this is incredible. So building on those learnings, and just how much AI was progressing, and how you could essentially disseminate information really easily using AI for a trip that's quite large. So big trips like destination weddings and things like that. So Lagos Bot came out of that.
Okay.
Death to December, is getting more global. 2 years ago was huge. Last year was even bigger. I think the stats are showing something like 1.2 million travelers came to Nigeria for Death to December, something like that. So,
and so what's Lagos Bot going to provide the end user?
Yeah, so we basically trained Lagos Bots on a variety of things. So restaurants, experiences, parties, events. Basically, just a wealth of information that a traveler will need when they come to Nigeria for this December. They want to know where to go, what's happening, where they can stay, where they can eat, where they can enjoy beach clubs, things like that. So, all this information is living in a bunch of different places on the internet, TikTok, on Instagram, in private group chats as well for the gatekeepy people out there. So let's bring all that information out, train a large language model on that information, and disseminate that as an AI assistant for anybody for free.
So let's talk about training specifically in like countries in West Africa then, because it's a conversation that a lot of people have had in the industry, like talking about like what training that OpenAI and some of the other providers, Anthropic, etc., are actually able to do, because it's very quite difficult. It's kind of like a niche use case, because not all of the information is actually documented online in that same sort of way. It's kind of like maybe in press or kind of like print and just these other kind of like mediums and forms where it isn't easily aggregatable. Like, what methods are you using to train your LLM specifically for like Lagos?
So it was very manual. So which when I was starting, I thought was going to be a bad thing, but I realized actually it's better for the user, because I'm Nigerian. I've done this December before. I've been on ground. I was on ground as well. We're able to get a sense of the legit stuff, if that makes sense. There's lots of noise when it comes to things like that December. People are coming from around the world and don't really know what's happening. Just going off of TikTok and asking their friends or family or their cousins. But if you don't have friends, family, or cousins,
you're not in the know.
You don't really know. So we're like, okay, cool. Let's get the information that we know is legit manually. Build our database. Clean that data, make sure it's everything structured well for the large language model to be able to to draw on in its knowledge base. And that took some trial and error. It's not the most straightforward process. It's a bunch of work, but that's what the magic is. In that fine tuning of the model. And then you have to pick your model. So the tool that we used to build it, you can select which LLM you want to use.
Which tool did you use?
We use a product called Dante AI.
Dante AI,
and the large language model we used was from OpenAI.
Okay.
I think it was GPT 4.5.
Okay.
But we tested a bunch of other ones as well. But that one seems to be the best, based on kind of the structure of our data. And the responses were kind of more consistent with that. So we built that, rolled it out, and the rollouts was a tricky part because of the noise and the amount of activity happening. Cutting through that to get people to hear about your products was pretty tricky. And we went in with no budget. We're still mainly bootstrapped as a company. We haven't raised any VC funding. We want to start raising our pre-seed round very, very soon. To start to scale and accelerate. So rolling that out and creating visibility was a little tricky for us.
Yeah.
But again, your lessons learned, and it wasn't the only thing we launched. I don't know if you saw the other stuff that we did as well.
Just go on. What was
so we also launched arguably something that was more successful than Lagos Spots. It was called Kahana Certified.
Okay.
And Kahana Certified is essentially the Michelin star for tourism.
Yeah.
So sticking with the same thinking, a traveler comes to Lagos in December and might not really know the things to do, where to go, the trusted service providers, So we said, okay, cool. For a traveler, what are the most important aspects of their trip? Right. Your accommodation, that's your hotel, your car rental, your restaurant, your bar, your club, where can I get the best drinks? Where, for people who want to get their hair done, where can I get the best, hair and braids? Very, very important parts of the Lagos experience when it comes to December, right? So we said, okay, we want to celebrate and acknowledge, and platform the businesses that are doing really well consistently in these categories. So we shortlisted businesses. I think there were 7 businesses in each category. So from your drinks to your food to your car rental, even to your finance, your payments as well. And we wanted to essentially highlight who was the best, and then tell people about it, and literally give them a Kahana certified award, a badge. So literally similar to a Michelin star.
Sure.
So that when a traveler comes into Lagos, we're like, okay, cool. This place is Kahana certified. I know that they're legit, because we rank them on things like consistency, quality of service, price. But because we're a small company, and our business is focused on, we're in London. We're not building for the Nigerian market specifically. We're building a global company. We said we're not going to just decide, okay, this person is going to win the food category, this person is going to win the drinks category. Who are we?
Yeah.
So we said, let's work with some tastemakers on ground. Let's build a cohort of tastemakers, people in Lagos who are just a plug for things to do. Let's work with them to vote on the businesses depending on the category.
Yeah.
Score them, rank them, and whoever wins, gets the highest scores, wins the award. And then when we get to Lagos, we'll actually physically go to those places and give them the award.
Sure.
So we did. We rolled it out. It was executed beautifully, and the impact was really amazing to watch. In fact, I remember the business that won the drinks category, Slice in VI, incredible drinks. You should definitely go if you're in Lagos. The staff were literally dragging our merchandise. Oh, I want the T-shirt, I want the bag. They were celebrating, the award, because they saw that we saw them, and the community, saw them, and the tastemakers saw them. So we want to do more things like that. And that's actually going to be a big part of our go-to-market. Okay. Yeah. So that was the second thing that we launched.
Certified. Okay, great. Yeah, good to hear about that. And kind of you're using Nigeria as a test bed, because obviously 100%. You know it, and there's obviously big events that are happening there.
And also just from I guess a bit of a patriotic place as well. Nigeria is an amazing country.
Yeah.
It has its ups and downs. Of course, we saw with speed, going there, seeing some of the madness and chaos that Nigeria brings, when you come, but it's nothing like home. And I think it's one of those places that's quite similar to the US. If you can get things done in Nigeria, and stress test it there, you're good in most markets in the world.
So how do you feel Speed's team could have used your platform then in the future, if there was a similar kind of tour across Nigeria? Because a lot of the criticism was that it wasn't curated in the best way it could have been curated.
Yeah.
To see all of the cultural elements of Nigeria.
Yeah.
There's a heavy bias between talking about clubs all the time, kind of those kind of things, whereas you compare it to when you went to Kenya or Zimbabwe, wherever it might have been, it was more cultural.
Yeah, 100%.
What's your thoughts around that?
Yeah, no, it was such an interesting analysis of that from a technology point of view, and also from just a tourism point of view, a travel lover point of view. I'll give you an example. One of my really good friends came to Nigeria for the first time this December, and he's not Nigerian. He heard about this December, and wanted to come and experience it.
Yeah.
But I took him not just to Lagos, I took him to Abuja, and I took him to my home state in Benue, just to give him a full variety of the experiences. They're 3 very different places, right? And I think the variety of experiences is really important. Nightlife is amazing, of course, and Lagos specifically does nightlife very well. I mean, we're talking, globally renowned for nightlife. But there's so much more to it. There's so much history he didn't get to see. There's so much context he didn't get to understand. There's so much of a slower pace. For example, why didn't they come to Abuja? for example.
That was spoken about, yeah.
Abuja's way nicer than Lagos.
Could have got a helicopter over there.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
You know, and stuff like that. So with Kahana specifically, you know, if they had used Lagos bots, you know, they could have curated that experience themselves. And Lagos bots are designed to give you a variety of things to do, you know, and because it's trained on our data specifically, it's not random stuff, you know, stuff that we've curated, you know, so they could have easily used that. And I hope in the future, you know, more influencers come to Nigeria and use Lagos bots. But there's other part of it too that I think is missing, which is the people who were responsible for bringing him to Nigeria didn't step up enough to give him that experience. Whether that's the government, whether that's his team, whether that's Nigerians, you know, whoever was in charge of that didn't do it. Now they should have called me. I would have helped out with the curation. You know?
Call out for Speed's team to hit you up,
please,
Felix.
Shout me,
next
man.
time.
Shout me. You know, let's take him to Yahuza in Abuja. You know, Nikkei Art Gallery. You know, I'm not sure actually because I didn't actually.
I think he did go to Nikkei. Yeah.
You know, he didn't go to Lekki Conservation Center, for example. You know, the John Randall Center. You know, of Yoruba. You know, culture and heritage. They didn't go there. So beautiful places. You know, there's a MoMA is coming up. Museum of West African. MOA, Museum of West African Arts is opening up in Benin City. You know, they're bringing lots of the Benin bronzes back and showcasing them there. So there's lots of opportunity for tourism in Nigeria specifically, and we hope to, you know, to be able to support on that as well.
Got you.
And do some more work there too. Even though we're, you know, building a global company,
Global,
we're looking at you know, the US
there's
markets.
There's a huge opportunity there, right? We're speaking about the diaspora all the time, and kind of like no one does know, like generally, if they don't have that connection in Nigeria or some of the country, they just don't know where to go because the information isn't readily available. Like, you know, obviously people are looking on social media a lot, on TikTok and searching, but in terms of being indexed, someone just put me a 5-day itinerary together. Do you know what I mean? It's a challenge. And
this is where technology comes into play, and specifically AI technology. You know, being able to train those models, you know, and disseminate that information at scale. You know, something that Lagos Bots is really good experiments on that, and you know, we'll very likely continue to, you know, push Lagos Bots and just have it as something, you know, Nigerians can use. But we're seeing we can do more versions of that as a really good go-to-market. So people who aren't in our community, aren't our core customers, can still use our AI products, you know, and you know, we'll monetize that, you know, in a way that makes sense as well. So we want to see things like Paris bots, London bots, and we think we can be a pioneer, you know, in that as well. You know, I think proving that out in Lagos, you know, at the, even though it was a small scale launch, you know, the data was really, really strong, and we can really, you know, just support that tourism, especially in terms of building trust as well. Lots of tourism is trust, you know, safety. You know, a lot of people who didn't want to come to Dirty December last year they said, you know, because, you know, Nigeria's chaotic and they might get kidnapped. It's like, it's highly unlikely in Lagos. You know, other parts of the country, yes. You know, let's be very frank about it. But Lagos specifically, like, no. You know, you can have the most amazing time. And then when they see your footage, that FOMO kicks in. Damn, like, you know, I should have come in next year. I have to run next year, you know.
Yeah, and I think Speed's Tour is like the biggest amplifier of that FOMO.
100%.
What's the future for yourself and the team at Kahana?
Yeah, so we are very, very laser focused on building the biggest travel tech company in the world. That's my ambition. You know, we think we can build something generational, focus on group travel. You know, Kahana as a product will morph into a group travel super app. You know, that's something that we're already designing the architecture for. You know, so being able to book flights is just one thing. You know, we're gonna launch hotels. We're looking at experiences. Kahana 2.0 is also going to have a Kahana shop as well, so you can actually get things you need for your trip in the same app.
Got it.
You know, so if you need your clothes and your suitcase, insurance, eSIM, you know, these different things, lounge pass. Rather than trying to force you to buy those things in the booking flow, you know, just buy your flight ticket, come to the Kahana shop, you know, and get the things you need, and it's curated by us as well.
Got it.
So we're excited to, you know, do some really, really cool partnerships as well. With that, we're excited about, you know, going more global. Excited about the US market, of course. You know, excited about UK market, excited about Africa. You know, we think that the version of the products that's going to serve Africa the best might be slightly different from what we're doing, you know, in the UK and in the US. But of course, we'll see. The market's growing very, very quickly, and you know, we want to really be leaders in this industry. We want people to we want our work to make people take travel tech seriously as an industry. You know, in terms of like building a team going forward, you know, we want people to have the option of building in AI, building in fintech, and then building in travel tech. And travel tech, that's nice. You know, we've seen the work Kahana is doing, and like, I want to be involved in that. You know, so that's something that we take pride in doing. We really want to be innovative, and we have been so far, and that's going to continue to grow. So yeah, we want to really, really, you know, be huge. And making impacts in the world. And, you know, our mission is to scale humanity's empathy. You know, travel is a beautiful way of building empathy. You know, when you immerse yourself in different cultures and languages and cuisines, you know, it allows you to connect with people better. You realize that, you know, the world is not that big. It's pretty small. Most of us are quite similar in the things we care about. You know, so we want to be able to scale that with technology, and we think Kahana is the way that's gonna happen.
Love that. Love that mission statement there. Scaling humanity's empathy. That's brilliant.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Where can everyone find you? Where can they find out more information about Kahana?
Yes, so Kahana_HQ on Instagram. We're mainly Instagram focused these days. Me personally, Felix Ochefu on Instagram. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. As well. If you're interested about the products, you know, hit me up. I'll happily give you a demo. I'll also show you the app as well. You know, here, and just excited to roll out. Kahana 2.0 is coming. We're putting a lot of work into this as well over the past couple of months. We worked with some amazing designers. You know, to get the products, you know, looking and feeling great. Our technologists in the team are amazing as well. You know, so we are excited about the next steps and excited to, you know, show the world what we've been working on.
Brilliant, Felix. It's been great having you on.
Thank you so much.
And we will obviously look for more information on Kahana and the future ahead in terms of that travel experience. But thanks a lot for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Thank you.